I was invited to speak at one of the global conferences that we have for my company. And I did a TEDx style keynote, and people are still talking about that keynote today. Wow. But that keynote, it put me in the position where I was in front of the senior vice president, the managing director, and the president. And they looked at me very differently after that talk. And I believe that if I did not have the sales experience, it would have been more difficult for me to be a speaker, more difficult for me to ascend in my career, more difficult for me to achieve success. Because when you think about any successful person, they failed, and they failed because they've tried. So the confidence that you see here is moving forward. Every time that I've heard no, every time that I've heard maybe not her, every time that I've heard nah, this isn't it, I kept moving forward. And I think like the reality of the situation is, yes, it is easier said than done, but if you want something bad enough, you're going to have to pick your heart. It's hard not to be successful. It's hard to be a failure. It's hard not to get the recognition. You have to pick your heart.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Career Education Learning Center podcast. I'm your host, Mitchell Rivers. I am thrilled and honored to have on our show today, Chantel Love. Ms. Love is a best-selling author of the book, Promote Your Damn Self, an NBC featured keynote speaker, personal branding expert, LinkedIn top 1%, and is recognized as one of Las Vegas's 40 under 40. Chantel, Ms. Love, welcome to our show today.
Thank you, Mitchell. It's so good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, sure. Now, Chantel, I'm pretty sure everybody asked you about the title of your book. So can you explain how you came with that bold title and what your book is about? A little synopsis of the book.
Yeah, absolutely. So for most of my career, I've worked in sales, and I work with some really, really big accounts and big companies, and had gotten to a point where I had well over $1 billion in sales revenue that I supported. But there came a point in my career where, although I had managed well over $1 billion in sales, I couldn't even negotiate a 10% pay increase. So I sought out on a mission to figure out, how do I really lean into my value and vocalize in my value? And I started applying everything that I knew about sales to my career. And I basically went out and promoted my damn self. I started making sure that the right people knew the value that I brought. I made sure that I was quantifying everything in regards to what was important to the people who had the authority and the power to advance my career. And that really put me on a trajectory where I went from an entry-level sales role to an executive role in less than 5 years. And my peers and people that I was in close proximity with were asking, like, Chantel, how are you doing this? So I started sharing that information and the strategies with them, and they started applying them, and it worked for them as well. And people were asking me to mentor them and coach them, and I really didn't have the capacity to do it. So I decided to write all of the strategies in my book, focusing on your mindset, focusing on your social proximity, and focusing on how to monetize your skills and your expertise. So in my book, Promote Your Damn Self, it was actually recently selected by the Elevate Box, which is a national self-care and personal growth subscription brand by Tasha Copeland. And that box had my book in there, and it was featured on WGN Chicago on a recent television segment where the regional audience is hundreds of thousands of people. And basically the message in my book was was to ensure that I was empowering high performers who are quietly sabotaging their own success, but staying excellent and invisible at the same time. I was empowering them how to fix it, because my theory is your career isn't meritocracy. It's a marketplace. Mm-hmm. And if people don't know your value, you don't get paid for it. So that's why I wrote the book, and that's why I leaned into that book. And if you're interested in getting the book, it's available on Amazon, or you can get signed copies from my website, chantellove.com/books.
Well, I didn't even get to the end and even ask that, ladies and gentlemen. She already promoted her book. She's already on top of her game already. Yes, Ms. Love, I have not had a chance to get the book. I will get it like probably 90% of people on Amazon. Okay. Yes. That's the way we do these days, right?
Yes.
And you're also a speaker. Tell about the speaking engagements you do.
Yeah. So I speak on topics like personal branding, LinkedIn, career acceleration, manager engagement, and AI fluency. And I really enjoy speaking at this phase in my career. I actually started speaking in that promote your damn self journey. I realized that most of the executive leaders were really good at commanding stages. They were really good at asking for what they wanted. So I taught myself how to be a speaker. And I think it was about 6 years ago, I was invited to speak at one of the global conferences that we have for my company. And I did a TEDx style keynote, and people are still talking about that keynote today. Oh, wow. But that keynote, it put me in the position where I was in front of the senior vice president, the managing director, and the president. And they looked at me very differently after that talk. And that's also what contributed to my ascension in my career. But I've spoken on stages like Sisters in Sales, which is the world's largest sales conference for women of color. I've spoken at AWS reInvent, which is Amazon Web Services conference with over 60,000 people and everything in between. So it's really been beautiful to have a girl from the east side of Detroit, first in her family to do a lot of things, to be able to share her story on these stages and strategies to help people in their career, in their brand, and in their life in general.
Yeah, is that part of the branding too, along with speaking? Can that also increase your brand? Can you tell us a bit how that goes hand in hand by you going around speaking in different venues, and also increase your brand across other social medias?
Yeah, it definitely does. And I think the reality that the two things I want to go back to talk about my book, what I know about conferences, you go there, you network, you hand out business cards, right? Uh-huh. My book is the business card that no one ever throws away. Like, you have the book, it'll be on your shelf. Like I have it on my shelf now, but it's that business card. And the same is with my voice. My voice is the business card. This is a stage. So people who've never seen me or never met me, didn't know about me, if there's something that intrigues them, they're going to go further. They're going to research me. They're going to Google me, and they're going to be exposed to my brand. And I think most companies who have a product or service, the more that they can get on stages like a podcast or an actual stage where they're keynoting or doing a workshop or doing a panel, they have access to a really large audience, and they're able to share what they provide, what they offer. They're able to invite people into their life. They're able to invite people into their business. And that's how I find myself leveraging LinkedIn. I view it as a stage. I know we were talking ahead of this conversation, but I view it as a stage. I'm stepping on that stage, and there are 8 billion people in this world, and someone out there that I've never met is being exposed to me in a way that they haven't been exposed before. So I believe that that's one of the best branding tools, creating your own stage and not waiting to step on a physical stage. You can step on a physical stage, but there are so many stages that people underestimate and underutilize.
So having a sales background, how much does that help? And I've been in sales before and kind of in sales now just by proxy, right? Anytime you're an entrepreneur, you have to be a salesman, right? You have to sell yourself. Even for a job interview, you have to sell. So people don't know they're in sales, but we're always in sales. Are there any advice for sales techniques in your book?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I dreaded being in sales. I'm just going to be honest. Like, I did not see myself as a salesperson. When my husband actually recommended me for the sales role, and I was like, me in sales? But as I look back, sales was probably one of the best career options that I had, simply because you don't just learn about a product. You don't just learn about a customer segment. You learn a lot about yourself. And what I mean by that is with sales, it really tests your identity, because you're not always going to get a yes. You get no. And if you view your identity, you attach your identity to the word no, you will never succeed. So it really taught me how to reshift and reshape my mindset from the perspective of understanding that when I hear no, it's not a no at me. It's a not right now. That's how I viewed it. Not right now. Something's not right at this moment. And there may be an opportunity to pursue that at a later time. And I believe that if I did not have the sales experience, it would have been more difficult for me to be a speaker, more difficult for me to ascend in my career, more difficult for me to achieve success, because when you think about any successful person, they failed, and they failed because they've tried. They've tried and tried and tried and tried and tried until they reached that point of success and understood that that door or that no was not end all be all. It was just a blip, if you will, in the entire equation. So if I were to give any advice of anything that's transferable from sales into a career or into your business or into any space, what I would say is these words: don't take it personal when someone says no. There is always another opportunity if you're willing to continue to use your voice.
Yeah. Now, I have to admit, that's easier said than done. It is easier said than done. And I've heard that from a lot of people like yourself, very professional, that does this for a living and have written books and speak on the topic a lot, and trainers. And as an audience, we can see that, we get that, we receive it. And then all of a sudden we go out there and bam, bam, bam. And like, oh, they say don't take it personal, but man, it don't feel good.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good. And I think the reality is it does not feel good. But if your heart and your mind aligns to something, so if you're saying, I want to start a business, I want to ascend in my career, you have to understand that the people who are doing it seamlessly, they've been doing it for a long time. And a lot of people don't get to see that history behind it. Like for me, I have a career that I've been in for 2 decades. So the confidence that you see here is moving forward every time that I've heard no, every time that I've heard, maybe not her, every time that I've heard, nah, this isn't it. I kept moving forward. And I think like the reality of the situation is, yes, it is easier said than done. But if you want something bad enough, you're going to have to pick your heart. It's hard not to be successful. It's hard to be a failure. It's hard not to get the recognition. You have to pick your heart. Every person is going to experience something hard in their life, but you have to make a choice in regards to how you're choosing your heart.
Yeah, choosing your heart is hard.
Yes.
It really is, because we as human beings are emotional. And some people are more emotional than others. Yes. And to sometimes put up that shield or to put that away, it's almost like a quarterback, right? We're in football season as we're taping this. And that when that quarterback throw an interception and maybe throw another interception, he's still got, if the first quarter, he's got 3 more quarters to go. He can't worry about that. He got to go forward. And the same thing with those no's, right? In the beginning of any business or anything that you want to do or get your job, right? You go to interview after interview and you get no, no, and no, or you send out resumes or you try to get your book published, you're going to receive a lot of no's, and you just have to fight through those no's. As someone said to me, it's not failure or success, it's failure to success, right?
Yes.
Failure to success. And so everybody's going through those failures. There are very few people, and there are very few people that went straight to yes and made it big. Very few. Right. So the average person and most people are going to have to go through those, as we call hard knots or knots upside the head or no's and, being failure, failure way. You have to try, to say before. And I've spoken to my audience before about this, is that, first start and as they say, you're going to be bad, and then you're going to get better. You're going to be good, and then you're going to be excellent. But you have to and you have to take the bad hits. Anything that we start in life, you're going to have to do that, right? When you start playing basketball, football, or you start playing an instrument, anything you're going to start off terrible and bad. Believe me. I started off the piano, Miss Love, and I was, my mom and dad were both into music. My dad was a music teacher, and my mom, she taught piano lessons. And so believe me, they had to go through a lot of bad before I came decent.
I'm sure. Speaking musically, I play the violin and the viola, and I started in elementary school, and it was horrible. It was speech. But I stuck with it. I got pretty good, but that's how it all starts. Like, I think like you're implying, if you knew it already, it wouldn't be difficult. When you're learning something new and you're processing something new, it wouldn't be difficult. The level of comfort and the level of confidence and competence comes through practice and trial and error and learning and failure and success and learning and accepting all of that. So fully agree with you.
Well, the thing about that, when we talk about that, is that when you've been doing something for a long time and you fail when you're younger, but in your mid 40s to 50s or 60s, you decide to make a career change. Yeah. So the hard part for someone like that is like, you got to start all over again. If you make a career change in a different field, you got to start all over again. And that's sometimes hard to do because you're such an expert. You became an expert. We said earlier, right? You went through that cycle and you became to where you're comfortable. Now you're starting a new career or a new job, or you're trying something else new, become an entrepreneur or whatever. And now you got to go through the same kind of bumps and grinds before. You don't get a chance to go from here to there and I'm an expert in this field, so I'm going to be an expert in the field. And that rarely happens. Would you say that?
Right. Yeah. And I think the thing too, because even going back to your point, we're emotional creatures. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's hard to be objective. And this thing that we have inside of us called our nervous system gets us all in flux when things are unfamiliar, when they change. And I can attest to that because I've been with the same company now for 12 years. But prior to that, I moved around a lot. Like I was in hospitality. I was in accounting. I was in software. I was in telecommunications. I was moving because I'm like, where's the money? Where's the right path? And even in the company that I've been with, each year or two, I'm looking for something new. It's just my personality type. I'm looking for something new so that I can train my nervous system. It's okay to learn something new. It's okay to be an AI expert when no one was talking about AI 3 or 4 years ago, right? It's okay to, try something new. And I find myself not just doing that at work. I turned 40, last year, and I learned how to swim for the first time in my life. And it was a journey. And it was a journey because I have an 8-year-old son now who swims very well in 19 feet. He jumps off the highest diving board with no life. He's good. And I'm like, hold on, wait a minute. Can I get a floating on? But I think in that entire process, I had to teach myself, okay, you're in a safe environment where you can try and learn. This is the best place to try because you're surrounded by lifeguards. What are you really afraid of? I'm testing my nervous system and okay, the more you try, the more you practice, the better you will get. So I went from 4 feet to 8 feet where I can swim confidently because the goal of swimming is not to touch the bottom. The goal of swimming is to stay on top. So, I think the thing that I had to learn is you have to give yourself those opportunities to test your nervous system so that you can retrain your mind on what is actually possible at different phases of your life.
Definitely. And also give yourself grace. Yes. I read it the other day. Give yourself grace. Don't be too hard on yourself in the beginning when you're starting something new. Definitely do not do that. Because then you're going to be hard on yourself and then that's going to put more pressure on you. Like, I'm trying to do better. And the more pressure, then the most likely is that you'll quit, right? Oh, I was hard now. I tried. And you put so much pressure on yourself, just relax and go over that. In fact, you mentioned that you just turned 40, and I read in your profile where you was one of Las Vegas's 40 under 40. I guess that won't happen no more. I guess you're out of that club. It's about like at my church one time, one of the leaders was a single. And he got married. I said, well, you're not going to be in that club no more. But tell us about that accomplishment. That's great, man, recognized some 40 when Las Vegas is 40 under 40. How was that? And how did that come
Yeah.
about?
it was a really great experience. I was surprised myself simply because I didn't even know that it existed. And then when I got the call and the email, I'm like, how did this happen? A close colleague of mine nominated me for it, for the work that I do with Promote Your Damn Self, and specifically with the Promote Your Damn Self and the Visibility Ladder Masterclass that I was doing, where I teach people how to promote themselves, and it's designed to help people stop leaving money on the table. And I teach them how to document their wins and articulate their value and position themselves so that they can get promoted faster, so that they can get recruited and paid more, and help them build their personal brand, because most people don't necessarily have a performance problem. They have a visibility problem.
Yeah.
So with that, like, she saw the work that I was doing in the community, outside of organizations, and to receive that recognition, especially alongside of my husband, who supported me through the ups, the downs, the left and the right, was definitely surreal.
That definitely helps out if you have a partner. It definitely helps out if you have a partner, as they say, partnership can really help you out, especially when, like you said before, when you're going uneasy ups and downs and all around, and someone that'll keep you stable, someone to lift you up when you're feeling down, and then someone to humble you when you get too high, right?
Yes. And there's no shortage in humbling.
No. Well, if anybody's married that's listening to my podcast or looking at the show here today, if you're a married person, you know good and well how that goes. So
Right.
too much of that before I get in trouble. And one thing I noticed that you are, Ms. Love, is you're very passionate about training. Where did that come from? I've seen your LinkedIn posts. I've seen where you're talking about training, how important training is. Where does that passion come from? And that part of your background, part of your experience that you brought to the table?
Yeah, I think that the reality that I know is when I think about training, when I just think about learning, it's important for individuals, be it a professional, corporate, self-employed, unemployed, to really focus on continuous improvement. And the more you strive to learn, the more you expose yourself to things that are not necessarily, that may not have been available to you before. And I think that training and learning creates that intersection that is typically a gap in equity, a gap in upward mobility, where it gives you access. So I'm very passionate about training and learning and development, because the more that I've been exposed to training and learning, and the more that the clients and organizations that I've worked with and partnered with have been exposed to training and development, the better that they've become. And it's closing that equity gap where they have access to information that has historically been kept behind a gate.
Yeah.
So, that's where that stems from. And it stems from a special and delicate place for me, because I'm a first generation college student, first generation professional, first generation author, executive, entrepreneur, the list goes on. And the only reason that I became the first is because I was exposed to something that was different than where I came from.
Right.
So that was the start of my learning, training, and development journey, was that exposure. So that's why it's really important to me, is to keep exposing, keep teaching, keep promoting the importance of learning and development, because the doors just come off the hinges sometime when you have that access to those resources.
Well, I really want you to expand on that, because when I see you on LinkedIn and I read on your profile, you are a LinkedIn top 1%. Yeah. And that's where when I saw you on LinkedIn, I looked at your post, I'm like, wow, this lady is really energetic and passionate about what she does. And that's why I'm so happy to have you on my show today. When did you find out you was part of LinkedIn top 1%? Did they send you an email? And they haven't sent me nothing, Miss Love. I ain't got nothing. I ain't even got the top 90%. You know what I'm saying? Top 1, because I've been in the top 90. You know what I'm saying? I ain't even got that yet. And so when did you find that out? Because they ain't sent me nothing. All they want to do is give me the premium and send me a bill. But how did you find out?
You got me so tickled here. I actually, before I get to how I found out, I'm a LinkedIn OG. So I've been using LinkedIn since LinkedIn started, but I realized that I was using LinkedIn the wrong way. Like, most people are using LinkedIn to find a job. They're looking at, old coworkers that they used to work with. They're, some of them are using the new LinkedIn learning tools, but they're not using it to build the network. They're not using it to build social wealth. And what I mean by social wealth is, you hear that phrase all the time, like your success is a function of the 5 people that you're closest with. And if you don't have 5 successful people around you, you got some things to evaluate and reassess. But what I found is that LinkedIn was more or less like a playground to network and to find opportunities and to meet people. So, about 4 years ago, I started to look at LinkedIn differently. And instead of just posting about, hey, I got a new job or it's my work anniversary, I started to talk about the challenges that I was experiencing as a new VP in the pandemic with the 2-year-old son trying to navigate this new world. And I realized that I wasn't alone. There were people who were gravitating to the post that I was putting out, and it became more of a vlog where I was being vulnerable and not just so corporate, and people were desiring and craving that. So in 2023, I got a notification from LinkedIn that I was in the top 1%. And I was like, oh, wow, like I really didn't know this was a thing. But it came as a result of being vulnerable. It came as a result of using that tool as a brand in my personal website before I even had a website, just showing what's happening behind the curtain in corporate America, in life, and just in general. So that's how that all happened.
Well, I tell you what, I'm about to email somebody on LinkedIn. Hey, look at me. I say, look, I'm somewhere here. It's amazing how you always somehow found out these wonderful things that happen in your life. If you ever find out that somehow you accidentally took the lottery or won the lottery or whatever, don't forget me, okay?
I got you.
Oh, man. So, Chantel, do you have any advice for our viewers and listeners as far as branding or training or anything that we talked about earlier?
Yeah, absolutely. And I started to mention this earlier. If you're looking to learn how to promote yourself, you can check out my Visibility Ladder Masterclass, where I teach how to conquer your mind, because we were talking about this. Most people want to do it. It's easier said than done, but they don't know where to start. And starting is not just putting yourself out there. It's evaluating yourself. Personal brand is called personal because it's a personal inside job. That's where it starts. Mm-hmm. And I think the reality is if you're using LinkedIn or if you're on LinkedIn, there's so many other ways to use it than just to post a work anniversary and an update. And a lot of folks underestimate the value in their voice and how to monetize their expertise in their voice. Well, so if you're looking for something like that, definitely check out my Visibility Ladder Masterclass. And I think the first step is just in all of it is just really looking at yourself holistically from the perspective of what people come to you for, even if it feels really small. They may come to you for advice. They may come to you for your technical expertise. They may come to you for your customer service. Whatever the fill in the blank is. And I think the reality is that's a value and that's an asset that most people underestimate because they do it so easy. So I say this because the personal branding should not be hard. It should be the thing that comes very easy to you. And that thing that comes easy to you is the thing that you should really look at. How do you share this with the world? How do you put this out there? How do you monetize that? How do you use it as leverage in your career, in your business, and in your brand?
Well, I tell you what, you have gave some very good nuggets today. I tell you, I have learned a lot. Oh, any more contact information? They want to get in touch with you through LinkedIn or your email? Do you want to get that out?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for that. For those individuals who are looking for a speaker on visibility, personal branding, career acceleration, you can definitely reach out to me on LinkedIn, Chantel Love, or you can reach me by email at info@chantellove.com.
Well, I tell you what, it's been a pleasure meeting you and talking to you today on our show today. And I really had fun. Thank you so much, Chantel, for coming on our show today.
Thank you as well for having me.
And I'd like to thank our viewers and listeners for joining me, Mitchell Rivers, on another fantastic episode of the Career Education Learners in the Podcast, where we make your career dreams a reality. God bless.